Movie violence is a tricky thing to portray, especially when it comes to movies aimed at a younger crowd. A superhero can punch people in the face all he likes, as long as nobody loses any teeth, spits blood, or screams in absolute agony. It's sort of the whole point that these movies play up the heroic fantasy instead of the nasty reality. Nevertheless, sometimes comic book movie directors do go mental and make dark swerves, filming brutal, disturbing scenes which the Killjoy editors must take out and hush up for the good of the world. I'm Adam from WhatCulture.com, and here are 10 disturbing scenes cut from comic book movies. Number 10. Lau burns to death, The Dark Knight. For a movie that doesn't feature a drop of blood, The Dark Knight still feels incredibly violent, with moments like the Joker's magic pencil trick, "It's gone," a citywide purging of government officials, and Batman's forceful interrogation of Mr. J. However, one scene when Christopher Nolan wisely held back was the fate of Lau, the slimy businessman who took off with the mob's money. He ends up tied to the top of a pile of that money, which the Joker sets on fire, a detail that can be easy to miss since the movie doesn't linger on it. Turns out Nolan shot a little bit more here, which showed Lau actually burning to death in his chair when the fire reached the top. That would have been a step too far, and in a way, the scene is much more horrific, taking place purely in our imaginations. Number 9. Red Mist, The Wolverine. Given how bollock awful X-Men Origins was, a lot was riding on the Wolverine to give the Canadian Edward Scissorhands the standalone treatment he deserved, and while it's hardly a perfect film, it was definitely a step in the right direction. Here's hoping Logan continues the upwards trend. Despite having literally knives for hands, Wolverine has never been allowed to get too messy on film, but still, the Wolverine director James Mangold wanted to push the boundaries a little and shot extra gore to see how much he could get away with. He sneaked some into the theatrical version, but had to withhold most of it for an extended Blu-ray cut, including a much bloodier fight with Wolverine facing off against the ninjas, and an entire segment where his ally Yukio mows him down with a snowblower, decorating the village with their guts. Oh, snicked. Number 8. Dead Children, Blade. Wesley Snipes has never been cooler than when cosplaying as day-walking half-vampire Blade, and the film is a good deal gorier than modern comic book movies, with blood raining from the ceiling, decapitations, and the occasional exploding body or 5. The violence is usually cartoonish though, and the film actually scaled back on a couple of the darker scenes to keep it light. One such deletion featured Pearl, the ultra-obese vampire librarian who appears in a scene played for laughs, but which originally included a subplot where Blade finds the bodies of dead children littered around the fatso. That's because the vampire was so fat he was thrown children to feed on, a grim detail that was left out of the movie, which maybe explains why Blade goes full-on berserker on him in the final scene. Number 7. Prison Murder, Batman vs Superman, Dawn of Justice. However you felt about the final product, it's putting it fairly mildly to say Batman vs Superman was divisive. The dark tone combined with a lack of humour made it feel downright oppressive at times, which some fans loved, while it turned others off. The Ultimate Edition version of the film helped patch up some plot holes and make the violence even more impactful. Blood sprays out of gunshot wounds, the fight scenes feel crunchier. Also in the extended cut, we follow the fate of a sex trafficker that Batsy branded at the start of the movie. He's shoved into jail and is naturally afraid of his life. He has every right to be, since he's soon brutally shanked in the jail yard by other inmates. This gritty scene was too much for cinemas, so lucky fans got to see it in the extended version instead. Number 6. The Kingpin kills his bodyguards, Daredevil. The Ben Affleck Daredevil movie hasn't aged that well, coming from the awkward phase where studios were still trying to figure comic book movies out, also f***ing Evanescence, but there still is some good stuff in there, with the director's cut helping to smooth out the rougher edges. It restored a half hour of footage, filling in plot holes, making it feel grittier, including the uncut Kingpin introduction, where he murders 2 bodyguards who might be leaking information. He bashes one in the head and grabs the other by the throat, unleashing a rather unsettling yell before cracking his neck like a twig. It's not gory, but it's easy to see why it was too much. Number 5. Feel the Burn, Spawn. It's hard to imagine there was stuff deemed too graphic for the very violent 1997 adaptation of Todd McFarlane's very violent comic, but considering the source material sees hearts get ripped out, child murder, and all sorts of unpleasantness, that's sort of to be expected. However, the extended version ladles on the pain, in particular during the scene where Al Simmons is burned to death, with the extended version being, well, just really horrible, to be honest. Number 4. The Joker's Death, Batman Beyond, Return of the Joker. Batman Beyond Return of the Joker is a great animated movie based on Batman Beyond, and like the title indicates, it features the return of Mark Hamill's Joker. How and why the Joker is still active in the future forms part of the mystery. I'm not going to spoil it, but a key flashback sequence had to be softened before release. The movie came out after the Columbine shooting, so there was pressure on Warner Brothers to remove violent content. The key alteration was a sequence showing Joker brainwashing Tim Drake. Batman watches a grainy video of Tim being tortured, and the Joker eventually tries to force the boy to shoot Batman. Tim kills the Joker instead, which is harrowing stuff for an animated movie. Number 3. Judge Griffin's Dismemberment, Judge Dredd. While the 1995 Judge Dredd movie might have been critically panned, it's still a somewhat entertaining mess. It was supposed to be PG-13, but it ended up being just too spicy for the MPAA, and it was lumbered with an R rating, limiting its audience. Now, to be fair, it's a wonder the studio didn't realise it was way too violent, looking at the dailies, which featured people being torn apart by gunfire and necks being viciously snapped. The nastiest scene featured the traitorous Judge Griffin having his arms and legs torn off by a robot. The final film has a glimpse of this, but it was much more graphic as originally shot. Number 2, the Joker tries to kill Harley, Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad got tinkered with a lot in post, with numerous subplots and character moments being excised in the name of quality. Most people weren't happy with the movie, Jared Leto especially, considering how much of his stuff was meddled with. A big concern for the studio was the abusive relationship between Harley and the Joker, which was played as a straight, albeit quirky, romance. Originally it was much darker, with an extended scene of Joker torturing Harley, slapping her across the face during a fight, and generally being an asshole. The most critical change was re-editing the helicopter scene. The Joker was meant to push her off the ramp in order to kill her, but in the movie it's changed to him saving her life. Warner Brothers got cold feet about the domestic violence angle, so it became an emo love story instead. And number 1, Carly's extended death, The Crow, City of Angels. The Crow sequels are all fairly poor, but it seems the second movie had potential before the producers cut it to ribbons. This resulted in the movie being an incoherent mess the director actually disowned. The reshoots toned down the brutality, with the unpleasant fate of female villain Carly being one such deletion. The scene where the Crow fights her originally ended when he threw her out of a window and she broke her back on the street below. Now crippled and fatally wounded, she begs him to kill her. Instead, he leaves her to suffer, and some random thugs appear to assault her. In the final cut, she dies in the initial fall, cutting back on all the suffering. Yeah, comic book movies are weird. And that's our list. Did we miss any out? Tell us about it in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter here. I'm Adam from WhatCulture.com, and I'll see you soon.